Hey everybody, welcome to Kharn The Betrayer Part 2. So here's Kharn with our red airbrush workup from Part 1 of the video. And today we're going to be blocking in some secondary colors and highlighting those with the airbrush as well, so that our highlights are uniform. And we're going to start off by blocking in all the skulls with Model Color Buff. It's a really nice mid-tone tan khaki kind of color that I like using for bone workups. Yeah, you can see here we're just going to focus on one of the skulls on the knee. You just get that blocked in, putting the paint on real thin so it's nice and smooth, and do a couple of solid coats. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3, maybe even 4 if you want to work really thin with the model color. But I think on this model it only took me like a couple of coats. Yeah, now that that's done, we're not going to focus on painting in every single thing. So here you can see I went in, blocked in all the stuff that I want to be bone colored, and now we're going to bust out the Tamiya masking tape and some Game Air Bone White. It's a really cool bone workup color. It's a little darker than something like ivory, so I like it as kind of our first highlight for these. And I'm just going to throw some masking tape on the model so that I don't get any bone white on our red armor. Just being real careful, and then we're just going to go in and get a airbrush highlight on all that bone. And the way that I'm doing it is kind of starting in the middle and then working my way out and leaving just the recess areas of each of those colors with that buff showing through, so you have kind of a little gradient, and it'll show through more once the wash gets on there. We're just going around the model using the Sotar 2020 there to airbrush up those highlights, just being real careful. This is actually not nearly as hard as it looks, and in some cases you don't even need the masking tape. I just do it to make sure that I don't make any mistakes. So if you just take your time, pretty much anybody can do this, so don't feel intimidated. Okay, now we're going to base in the little tufts of hair or the tassels or whatever you want to call them, those little hair things hanging down from his helmet, and we're going to base those in with dark Prussian blue for model color. It's a really dark navy blue, paints like a dream, and I love using it on a ton of projects. Okay, so you see we got those based in, and now we're going to do the same thing with the masking tape. We're just going to come in, mask off some areas so that when we start airbrushing up those blue hairs, we don't get anything on the rest of the model. And then we're just going to do the logical step of going up to Prussian blue, which is more of a mid-tone blue. Of course, those two colors are kind of made to work together in the same range, so they're going to highlight off each other really nicely. And I'm just going to hit kind of like from the midpoint down, starting to create a gradient. Now the second one here, I couldn't really mask anything off because it's actually molded onto his chest. That's the way the sculpt works. So I'm just having to be extra super careful, try not to get any overspray. And I think when we went up to our blue-green, which is our third step, I'm just going to mix that in right into the Prussian blue so that it's not like ultra bright, because I plan on using the blue-green to do our little edge detail highlights at the very end of the model. And I'm just going to go right in there. And I think at this step, I did get like a tiny bit of overspray kind of in his armpit area. And between cuts, I just went in with some of our base color Army Painter Crusted Sore and just base coated right over those areas, because those are in such shadow anyways. It's not going to really warrant airbrushing it back. Now we're going to work on the arm, basing in with Cardic Flesh from P3. I recently picked up this paint and I'm starting to really like the P3 stuff, so I figured I would use it on this project. It's a really good kind of darker Caucasian tone that makes a pretty good base coat if you're working with it thin. And the P3s are kind of new to me, and what I've found with them is that they're a little thinner naturally than other paints like Model Color or what you get through Citadel. So I just made sure to work with it really thin, and I'm just going to be doing like the first kind of base coat with this, and then between cuts you'll see that it's going to be a little bit more opaque because it actually has a little bit of dry time to it, because I want to make sure that between coats I'm not picking up any paint when I put the new wet paint down. So just do a coat, set it aside, let it dry, hit it again. Alright, now that our base coat is done, we're going to come in with some Army Painter Barbarian Flesh, which is a little bit brighter Caucasian tone, and you're going to be able to see it even under the light. It's going to get a little washed out because it's such a bright color, but because we're going to be washing over it, it's going to darken it down, and it's going to be nice and soft. We're just going to hit the big muscle areas with that, going to create a top-down highlight like the rest of the model with that flesh tone. And after that, we're going to go to another color. Just making sure to get most of the base coat kind of highlighted with that Army Painter Barbarian Flesh. And then we're going to go to our third color, which is Flat Flesh from Model Color. And it's just ever so slightly brighter than Barbarian Flesh. And I actually just kind of rinsed out the Barbarian Flesh and then mixed the Flat Flesh right into the kind of watery remains of that. So it's creating a really nice color fade where it's not going to be a super harsh color delineation between the two coats. And this one I'm just spot highlighting a couple of areas, selecting different muscle groups where I'm just putting like a little bit of that Flat Flesh highlight on there, and it's really bright. Like, it's a lot brighter than you probably want it to be, but that's fine because when we throw a wash over it, it's going to darken it down. And it's usually a good idea to highlight up a little bit brighter than what you're comfortable with before putting a wash on there, so that once the wash goes on, it'll darken everything down and merge those colors together. That's it for part 2. So we got all of our basic colors blocked in and highlighted with the airbrush. In part 3, we're going to be doing metallics and a wash, so make sure to check it out. Also, check me out on Twitch for my live streams. I stream 4 nights a week and do live tutorials. It's a ton of fun. You can find the link in the description. I'll see you guys next time.